Hi again, everyone. Gary Digit Williams here on Boxing Along the Beltway. Our news and notes for this week. We're back after a pretty lengthy absence. I was actually on vacation for a couple of weeks, and a lot of things going on outside the boxing area. Of course, prayers for the citizens of St. Paul, Minnesota, of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Dallas, Texas as well. Of course, if you've been following the news, you know what's been going on with that. But and also we've had a little bit of a lull here in this area as far as in-ring things. And although we do have a lot of news to report to catch up on, so let's do that at this point. And a lot of it's going to concern the amateurs. And I tell you something, my amateur program, it's really interesting because at one level we are in a great shape. At another level, we're not so good. And then the third level, we're really coming back. We're getting in good shape as well. Of course, you may know by now that Gary Antoine Russell, the youngest of the Russell brothers, has qualified officially now for the Rio Olympics. And he will be in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, representing the USA, one of 6 boxers from the United States that has qualified for the Olympic Games. And congratulations to them. Shakur Stevenson's one of them. He's been in town. He's been sparring with Antoine, getting ready for this. And one person, Jonathan Esquivel, was knocked out by a guy who had been a pro, who, because of AIBA's stupid rule that is allowing pros to qualify for the Olympic Games even at this stage in Rio, basically robbed Jonathan Esquivel of a opportunity to go into the Olympics. I just think that's just ridiculous. I stand by what I say. I think it's ridiculous that pros are being allowed to qualify for the for the Olympic Games. I think it's just stupid. I don't think USA Boxing stance was harsh enough on it. They should not allow it at all because they're leaving the door open for 2020 in Tokyo. And I really believe it's just ridiculous. And it robbed one of their own boxers for an opportunity to qualify for the Olympic Games. And I just think that's just dead wrong. But suffice to say, that's my stance on that. But Antoine Russell did indeed qualify, so he's going. And also, one of our local coaches will be a part of the Olympic team. That's Kay Karoma. Now, Kay Karoma's had a great story. He was a promising pro when he first started. I remember him when he started as a pro, but he had an illness or some sort of illness that did not allow him to continue his boxing career in the ring. So he's become an outstanding coach. He's worked with a lot of great boxers around the area. He's worked with Antoine Douglas. He worked with Aisha Kinney. And the young lady out of Williams, who, congratulations to her, just graduated from T.C. Williams High School this year in Alexandria, Virginia. And now he's been working for the last few months with many parts of the Olympic team in Colorado Springs and beyond. He's going to be one of the coaches for the U.S. Olympic team going to Rio. I'm so happy for him as well, and also happy for Antoine Russell. Now, at the level where Russell is, in the open level parts of boxing, actually Antoine's more in the elite level, of course, but in the open division, as we've seen from the Golden Gloves the last couple of years, we haven't been there. That's where our impasse is at the moment. But when we look at the juniors, that's our next wave as far as the amateurs are concerned. And that was proven from the recent performance at the Junior Olympic Nationals at the K. Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in Dallas, Texas. We brought home 12 medals, 4 gold medals. Okay. From Oxon Hill, Maryland, Jamal Harvey won the intermediate 80-pound division. Quincy Williams of Washington, D.C. won the intermediate 90-pound class. Jelani Hill won the Pee Wee 90-pound division early in the week. He won the first medal for the Beltway. And the last gold medal went to a guy that has, and I tell you, this is almost like Mike Reed was a few years ago for me. When Mike Reed was a top amateur, and I looked Mike Reed, and I've told this story many times now, I looked Mike Reed dead in the face and I said, I can't wait until you turn pro. The same can be said for Lorenzo Simpson. They call him Truck in the area, but I tell you, I cannot wait until Lorenzo Simpson turns pro because he is going to be outstanding. He's been doing tremendous work. Of course, we know he's a 6-time national silver gloves champion in 6 weight divisions. And he won the junior division at the Junior Olympics. He won the gold medal there, 165-pound class. And he was named the outstanding male boxer in the entire junior division. And it was interesting because, and I got to thank 2 people in particular. I thanked them in the blog, but I want to thank them publicly on this podcast. Ricky Womack, who, and a lot of people don't like Ricky Womack sometimes because of the way he carries himself. He's been involved with PVA for a few years now. And I got to tell you, he has done an outstanding job getting the PVA All-Stars, PVA boxers, to work as a unit and to feel like a family. And, he had them all dressed up in matching outfits. They just weren't guys just going on a trip. They were together, they were bonding, and Ricky had a lot to do with that. And throughout the competition over the past week, he was showing through Facebook Live, which I love, by the way. Facebook Live, a lot of the competition for different boxers. Okay. But also, Donica, the mother, Donica Nicole, she goes by on Facebook. The mother, Lorenzo Simpson, has been, of course, showing Lorenzo's bouts during the course of the week. And I remember watching the first bout that he was involved in. And I knew then that he was going to win that division. And I put on Facebook, and I normally don't do this because I don't know exactly who else Lorenzo might be facing, but I just said to myself, there can't be anybody better than Lorenzo Simpson in this tournament. I mean, if he's better than Lorenzo, chances are he's a pro already. That's what I felt like saying. But I put on the podcast, I put on her video, there's nobody better in this tournament than Lorenzo. And it turned out to be the case. It really did. So congratulations, Lorenzo Truck Simpson. And again, I cannot wait until this young man turns pro. He's only 16 years old, I think, now. And so he's got a couple years. But when he becomes a pro, boxing world, just look out. I mean, that's all I can say. Just look out. He's going to be fantastic. Also, we had a number of silver medalists. We had Richard Dodson out of Capitol Heights, Maryland. He won the silver in the bantam class, 70-pound division. Stacy Selby of D.C. won silver in the intermediate 125-pound class. Also, Candace Carter from Towson, Maryland, won the silver medal in the youth female 112-pound class. Now, another female out of Baltimore was scheduled to participate in this event, but and that's Mia Killer B. Ellis, and this is someone I've been watching box as an amateur almost seemingly since she was a baby, in all honesty, literally. But it seems that way. But she was scheduled to be in the event. And apparently, according to her father, Kenny Ellis, who's also her trainer, something happened with the weight. And they asked her to go up in weight right where the competition started, right in Dallas. And they decided not to do that with a good decision made on that. And Kenny pulled his daughter out of the tournament, which is probably a good idea in that case. 5 more DC amateurs won bronze medals during the competition. Cardarius Johnson, Pee-wee 60 pounds. Marcel Steele in the Pee-wee 80 pounds. Benjamin Johnson in bantam 80 pounds. Kevon Cook in the junior 106 pounds. And Siete Schuler won bronze in the junior 154 pounds. So 12 medals in all. We sent a grand total, you combine the PVA boxers with the South Atlantic boxers, 23 boxers to compete in the event and came home with 12 medals. That's not bad at all. It really isn't. Outstanding. So give this group another couple years and they start going into the novice and into the open Golden Gloves. This group is going to be our next wave. This could be the same group, similar group that brought us the Gervonta Davises and the Mike Reed and the Russell brothers and Lamont Roach Jr., Demetrius Ballard, and those guys who have already won national Golden Glove champions. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years. So we'll see what happens there. Now let's move on the total end of the other end of the spectrum. A guy that I tell you, and I've said it many times before, he is an amazing story. And he has been an amazing story for a number of years. And when I look at this story and I'm looking at the headline that I wrote on the blog about this story, it's amazing. It's just an amazing story. We're talking about former WBO junior welterweight champion DeMarcus Chop Chop Corley. Now, this past few months, Corley, and I haven't really talked about this because I didn't know how really big this was, in all honesty. And in the grand scheme of things, it may not be that big, but it turned out to be a very interesting story. Since March of this year, Chop Chop Corley has been involved in a Jamaican version of The Contender. Now, for those who don't remember The Contender, if you're a boxing fan, how do you not remember The Contender over the last few years? Contender was a show that aired on few networks here in the United States. NBC, where it first started. It was on ESPN for a couple of years. It was on what was then called the Versus Network. Now I believe that's Fox Sports 1, I think. It was the Versus Network back then for this final season. And actually, the connection between the Contender and the Beltway was pretty strong. In the very first year, and that was the year where Sylvester Stallone co-hosted the show with Sugar Ray Leonard, Jimmy Lang was on that show. And that did a lot for Jimmy Lang's popularity in this area and around the country. So that did a lot for him. One of the second or the third year, I believe Henry Sugar Poo Buchanan was scheduled to be on one of the years. I believe it was second. I think it was the second year, because the second year Leonard hosted the show, and one of the trainers was the legendary Pepe Correa out of this area, out of the Beltway area, and Sugar Poo Buchanan was scheduled to be on that year, but Henry decided not to be involved because he did not want to commit to taking a Contender contract for, I believe, 2 years at that point. So he dropped out. And then in the final year, when they went to the Cruiserweight division, Darnell the Dingling Man Wilson was a part of that year. So we've had a lot of connections with the Contender. Well, they have a Contender series in Jamaica called the Ray and Nephew Jamaican Contender Series. I don't know what Ray and Nephew is, but Corley was part of a team from the United States that battled a number of young boxers from the Caribbean, and the emphasis on that sentence is young, because a lot of the young boxers had no idea what they were getting into with this guy who is 42 years old and fought literally some of the best competition in the junior welterweight division and in some of the lightweight division too in this world. And it kind of reminded me, in the second year of the American Contender Series, Steve Forbes was a contender, which confused me because Steve Forbes, prior to being a contender, was a world champion, and I didn't understand why he was in there. And he ended up not winning, but I believe he went to the finals. No, he didn't go to the finals that year. He sure didn't. But I didn't know why he was in there. And so you wonder, in a way, why Corley was involved in a Contender Series. But it turns out Corley would win the entire series. He won the championship on July 2nd against a guy named Richard Frog Holmes. Actually, Holmes had knocked Corley down the 5th round to come back, and Corley came back and won the bout by a 7th round knockout. And Corley ended up winning 2 of his bouts by knockout, and he won the first prize of $2 million Jamaican, which comes out to about $15,000, almost $16,000, what he ended up winning. But again, for him to do this at this age, at this time, I mean, he won his title way back in 2000. I mean, he won his world title way back in 2000, and he believes, and I had a long talk with him earlier this week. He believes that he is fighting better now than he did in 2000 when he won his title. And he's calling out people. He's been calling out Zab Judah for a rematch for almost a year. And now he's calling out Floyd Mayweather. Now, he's faced both these guys before and really gave Floyd Mayweather one of his toughest bouts early in that bout. And you got to wonder, you wonder. I mean, I seriously doubt Mayweather's coming out of retirement to fight DeMarcus Corley. But the Zab Judah situation seems more intriguing now than it did, say, 6 months ago. And you wonder whether or not that might work now. Okay? The problem is Judah is having a tough time getting fights and keeping fights. And that's what's interesting about that. So, Corley and I talked about that, and he said Judah cannot face Corley out of the box. And I agree with that, because Corley hurts Judah right now. Because Judah has not had a bout, I think, in more than a year. Corley's been fighting regularly, for a number of years now. I mean, he's not taking any time off. Even during the Contender Series, he took a fight in Mexico. A lot of people thought he won that fight against Adrian Estrella. So it's interesting. It's just a great story, and he's one of those guys that keeps himself in great shape. Talking to him, there's no signs of any kind of slurring, or he's in sound mind, sound body. He wants to drop down to 135 and compete at 135, which he has done for a while. And he's one of those guys that he just keeps going. And it's amazing to see. So it's a great story. So congratulations to DeMarcus Chop Corley. We'll continue to follow his progress. It's amazing that we can say that, but he's going to do it. We'll see what happens. Now, as we said, boxing in this area has been kind of in a lull. Hasn't been a whole lot of in-ring situations. We do have some cards coming up amateur-wise. We have a big one coming up at the Bald Eagle Recreation Gym on, actually it's going to be July 29th through July 31st. It's the return of the Mayor's Cup. And the Mayor's Cup, once upon a time, was arguably the biggest amateur tournament in this area. It was huge. It used to be held at Bird Gymnasium on the campus of Howard University in Washington, D.C. And it was huge and brought out some great fight. A lot of the great boxers who went on to be world champions in this area fought in the Mayor's Cup. And has a rich history. I've had the opportunity to be the ring announcer for a couple of events, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. And that's going to be at the Bald Eagle Recreation Gym, July 29th through July 31st. Give you more information about that as we get it. But once upon a time, the late Marion Barry, the mayor of Washington, D.C., was a huge, and I mean a huge supporter of the Mayor's Cup. That's how it first got started, really. And so Muriel Bowser, the current mayor of D.C., from what I hear, is not a huge boxing fan. But apparently she lent her title to this, and it's going to happen coming up later on this month. Of course, later on this month as well, Thomas Top Dog Williams Jr. has his opportunity for a world title against Adonis Stevenson. That'll be in Quebec City, Canada, on PBC on Spike. So wish him well for that. We'll give you more about that a little bit later on as well. We also know that Jordan Short Dog White is scheduled to be on a card on Saturday, July 9th in Trenton, New Jersey. And we're hearing that Alantez Fox is scheduled to be on a card July 21st at the Foxwoods Casino in Mashantucket, Connecticut. So we'll give you more information about that. We did. Jordan White does have an opponent for that show. For his show, his opponent is Juan Benavides out of Mexico. And Jordan White, of course, 2-0, 2 KOs. Benavides 5-8-1, 2 KOs out of Sonora, Mexico on that one. Now, we mentioned Alantez Fox, we mentioned Jordan White. And Jordan is directly involved in what I'm going to talk about next, and Alantez is involved family-wise, what I'm talking about coming up next. And that is our next local card, pro boxing card in the Beltway region. It'll take place on Friday, August the 19th. And it'll be at the Crystal City Hilton Hotel in Arlington, Virginia. That's located at 2399 Jefferson Davis Highway in Arlington. I always give an address for a place we usually don't go, have not been in a while, for pro boxing. Now, we say Alantez Fox is involved in a family way in this bout because his younger brother, Michael the Professor Fox, will be on the card. He'll take on Sumner Magic Man Martin out of Martinsville, Virginia. Now, Mike Fox is 10-0, 2 KOs. He coming off a 6-round unanimous decision over Jose Valderrama. That was on June 28th in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Martin is 5-2, 3 KOs, but he hasn't fought since he dropped a 6-round unanimous decision to DC's Kareem Martin on April 1st. That was on the Adrian Bronner Ashley Theophane card at the DC Armory. Now, this bout will be an 8-round bout, the first time either boxer will be involved in an 8-round contest. So that should be a lot of fun, and we'll see the continuing development of Mike the Professor Fox. Should be very interesting to see what happens. The co-feature on this card should be very interesting. And over the last couple of days, I've been thinking about this particular bout, and I was leaning in one direction about the bout, and then I realized something. Now, I'll explain what I mean when I go into it. And when I realized it, I said, okay, now I understand why this bout is indeed taking place. And this could be a very interesting bout, no question about it. It's a contest between two young, undefeated Beltway heavyweights. Luther Lights Out Smith of Bowie, Maryland, takes on Mike Silverback Balogun of Upper Marlboro. This will be a bout scheduled for 6 rounds. It's the first time either man has gone 6 rounds. In fact, they've only gone the distance, 4-round distance, once in their career, both of them. Smith is 5-0, 4 KOs. He went the distance in his last bout when he won a split decision over Solomon May on April 29th in Atlantic City. Meanwhile, Balogun is 6-0 and 5 KOs. His only time he went the distance was against Lonnie Cornegay, and everybody goes the distance against Lonnie Cornegay. So that's no shame. And Balogun is coming off a first-round TKO over Devon Mosley on May 13th in D.C. at the Armory. That was when Dusty Harrison fought Mike Dallas. Now, usually, bouts like this, I have issues with. And here's why. Again, Luther Lights Out Smith's only had 5 pro bouts, and Balogun's only had 6 pro bouts. And they haven't fought great competition, neither one of them. In fact, I think Balogun has fought 3 debuting boxers in his career. And there's nothing on the line. There's no local regional title. Of course, they did not really have enough. They don't really have enough experience for a NABA, USBA, whatever, USBF, NABO title. So you know that wasn't going to happen. So my first thought was, why is this bout happening now? It makes no sense. And it could really, the loser could be damaged, especially if it goes in a knockout, which this has the unbelievable potential to be. Then I started looking at both their bios and records. And this is why this bout, unlike most bouts in this similar situation, makes sense. Both these guys are 30 years old. Boxing was not their first discipline. Luther Smith comes from MMA, and Mike Balogun is a former football player. Played college at Oklahoma and played on practice teams with a number of teams in the NFL, including Washington. And so this isn't what they started out doing. And they took up boxing very late and may not have a boatload of time to really progress. And that's why this bout, more so than most situations, these aren't guys, I can see if these guys were 18 years old and they've been boxing all their lives and they had long amateur careers and they're starting out pro. If that were the case, then this bout would make no sense whatsoever. But because these guys are in their 30s, in their young 30s, early 30s, and they didn't have a whole lot of amateur experience, either one of them. And we don't know how long they're going to be in this business, quite frankly. This bout now makes perfect sense to me. And I didn't think about that. And I said, wait a minute, Balogun's 32 years old, and I think Luther's like 31 or so. And I said, okay, now this bout makes sense. Now this bout makes sense. So it should be explosive. I mean, neither one neither one has really been tested on the defense. We don't know how good their defense is, really. I mean, I guess you could say that Smith got a little test because he did win his last bout by split decision. So I guess that's about the close that either one has had a test as far as how good their defense is. So that'll be interesting to see where these guys can take punches against a guy who can hit very hard, So that should be very interesting to see what happens. So that's gonna be the co-feature. It should be interesting indeed. Other boxers scheduled to be on this card: Devar Jingwar for Hardy, 6-0, 5 KOs, middleweight out of Frederick, Maryland, who just has some of the best body shots you'll ever see, and that's gonna be fun to watch him box again. Also, the Vanilla Gorilla Sam Crossett on this card. Marcus the Dream Crusher Bates on this card. Crossett is 3-0, 1 KO, as is Marcus Bates. Actually, Bates is 3-0-1, 3 KOs. And we also had the professional debut of Slick Justin Hurd, who is the younger brother of Jared Hurd, the super welterweight contender. And Justin Hurd I've only seen once. He didn't have a whole lot of amateur experience, so interesting to see what he does. But if he trains like his brother does and under the tutelage of Ernesto Rodriguez, he should be very interesting to see indeed. Also on this card, Jordan Short Dog White, who we talked about earlier. Again, he has that card Saturday night in Trenton, New Jersey. He's also scheduled to be on this card in a 4-round encounter, as is Owings Mills heavyweight Kobe Madison. Madison is 2-0, 1 KO. He won his last bout by 4-round unanimous decision to Lonnie Cornegay in Timonium, Maryland, back on May 14th. A couple guys who are not on this card. Darnell Pierce, out of Frederick, Maryland, scheduled to be on this card. He will not be on this card. And the original guy that was scheduled to be the headliner on this card, Ty Barnett, will not be on this card. He is actually going to be on a show that'll be on August 6th, which actually was the original date for this card. Some of you may have seen flyers that the date was August 6th. It has now been moved once again to Friday night, August the 19th. It's a King's Promotion Keystone Boxing card, by the way. We haven't said that, but it's a King's Promotion Keystone Boxing card. And Ty Barnett took himself off this card. And he'll take on Maurice Hooker in Oakland, California on August 6th. And that's on the undercard of the Andre Ward bout that night. So that's why Ty Barnett will not be on this card. So it's going to be interesting. Fall, we get ready to go into the fall months. Again, big bouts coming up. We'll talk more about Thomas Williams taking on Adonis Stevenson. We'll start looking at the Olympics and following Gary Antoine Russell and whether he'll get into the situation there. Should be very interesting to see what happens in the summer months continue. So that'll do it here for another edition of Boxing on Beltway News and Notes. Thanks for being patient with me and just getting back into the swing of things. We'll be back in the swing of things hot and heavy in the next few weeks. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great rest of the summer, and we'll talk to you next week right here on the Boxing on Beltway Google app for Android and on Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio.com, and YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Always remember to keep supporting the best boxing in the world. The boxing along the Beltway. Take care.